Well, hello and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, April 25th. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we've got rankings, risers, and fallers. Quite a few players went on the IL, buy, sell, or hold, and much more. But let's get into it.
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
All right, Scott, you are up with a negative player of the night, one that might have hit us with the old rope-a-dope.
Yeah, let's talk about Garrett Crochet, who I was pretty confident was going to bounce back from his two bad starts, given that he was facing the Twins, who have been kind of a doormat so far, one of those teams that you like to stream pitchers against, especially right-handers, which Crochet isn't, but even so. It didn't go well. He allowed, what did he allow?
5 earned runs in 4 innings of work on 7 hits with 2 walks and 6 strikeouts.
There you go. Bad news Bears for Garrett Crochet. And that gives him a total of 17 earned runs allowed. Over his past 3 starts, his ERA rising from an even 2 to 6.37. Nobody likes a 6.37 ERA. There's a 118 whip to go with it. We'll start there. We'll continue with Garrett Crochet entered this start with the 3rd best K per 9 rate of any starting pitcher. And he entered this start with the 5th best expected ERA of any starting pitcher. So other than the number of earned runs that have crossed the plate, you look at most of the stats for Garrett Crochet and say, well, that is quite impressive. But the fact it is 3 starts in a row that have gone sour, I think it's fair to wonder, has the word gotten out on Garrett Crochet? Was there not much of a scouting report before, and now there is, and he just doesn't do something right. You know, there isn't enough variety. He throws 3 pitches, but you know, they're all kind of there's the slider, there's the cutter, there's the fastball, similar whiff rate on all of them. Have they just kind of caught up to him? And I obviously don't know the answer to that. But I will tell you that a pitcher who enters the day with the 3rd best K per 9 rate and the 5th best expected ERA, no matter what they happen to do that day, is somebody I'm going to stick with for a little longer. And maybe you don't trust my evaluation of pitchers, which is probably a wise move on your part. But we did just have Lance Brozdowski on Friday's show, one of the most celebrated pitching evaluators of our day. And he gave his stamp of approval to Crochet. He didn't share any like warning signs with any of us. Oh, here's why it's all phony baloney. He had a resounding endorsement of him, and I think there's a lot of talent there, and I wouldn't be so quick to pull the plug, despite what many out there are saying.
So we just got the ability to rank Garrett Crochet as a starting pitcher. For those wondering, for the relievers that started this season on CBS, they only had relief pitcher eligibility. They had to make 5 starts to gain starting pitcher eligibility. Today's focus is going to be, we're talking about rankings, risers, and fallers. Scott, where did Garrett Crochet fall into the starting pitcher rankings?
So prior to the start, I had him 32nd. After this start, I now have him 40th. It's moving down, but 40th is still somebody who I would consider must roster in all leagues. So that puts him in between Ryan Pepio, who we also are now able to include in the starting pitcher rankings. I have Pepio 39th. I actually have Mason Miller 41st, but Reed Detmers 42nd. So that's where I'm slotting Crochet between Pepio and Detmers. Imanaga is right behind them. Nick Lodolo is right behind that. So you got a bunch of lefties there with really good strikeout upside, but some questions lingering. and I would have Crochet among that group. I think he's much better than a 6.37 ERA is the bottom line. But I don't know know exactly what he is yet.
Mm-hmm. The FIP and XFIP would agree with you, by the way, that he's better than a 6.37 ERA or 6.39, whatever it is. It's a 4.10 FIP and a 2.90 XFIP for Garrett Crochet after this start here on Wednesday. Chris, was there anything you wanted to add on him?
Yeah, I've got him 45th after this start. He was 37th before, so moved the same number of spots. I was just a little lower to begin with than Scott on Garrett Crochet, but I saw someone in the mentions saying all of these good stats from Crochet are based on his one good start. And like, that's also not true. Like, if you don't believe in him, that's fine. I think skepticism towards any pitcher who has made 6 starts in their major league career is warranted. And that includes Jared Jones, who we all really like and have as a top 22 starting pitcher, I believe, if I remember correctly, based on our rankings updates today. Garrett Crochet had 3 really, really good starts to open the season. He had 8 strikeouts, no walks, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, no walks, and 5 innings. Like, he has had 3 outstanding starts and 3 mediocre to, bad starts. I agree with Scott. I don't think he is a 6 whatever ERA pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he's a 250 pitcher, ERA pitcher, or whatever his xERA is either. I would bet against that strongly, but I feel confident that he's probably a sub 4 ERA pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
We're still getting,
and he might be a low 3s ERA pitcher.
Right. Yeah. Like that's possible. I think the most concerning thing from this start is only 8 whiffs on 87 pitches. He's given up some hard contact as well. You know, today it was, I think, 5 batted balls over 95 miles per hour. All of them went for hits. 4 of them went for extra bases. Like, a 99 mile per hour batted ball is bad. And he gave up 4 of them between 98.9 and 100.6. You don't expect every single 100 mile per hour batted ball to go for a hit and to go for extra bases. There is probably some bad luck going on as well. And there's probably some bad clustering going on with his very low left on base rate. But again, I think skepticism is very much warranted. Skepticism was warranted when things were going well, and now there is more skepticism around him. But who are you dropping him for? We were talking before the show, and someone on Twitter said that Joe Musgrove had been dropped in their league. I would drop Garrett Crochet for Joe Musgrove if Garrett Crochet was my worst pitcher. But if we're talking about, like, I wouldn't do it for Eric Fetty. I wouldn't do it for, like, Dean Kramer. I wouldn't do it for
Spencer Turnbull.
If he was going to be in the Phillies rotation, I might, because I actually do believe in Spencer Turnbull. But no, given what we know right now, I would not do that. Wouldn't do it for Tyler Anderson, who's been really good so far, or Jameson. Like, it would have to be a pitcher with legitimate upside, and I just don't think there are likely to be any pitchers on most waiver wires that have as much upside as Garrett Crochet.
I want to address one other thing I've heard about Garrett Crochet, and it's been discussed on this podcast, and kind of my feelings about a potential innings limit for Garrett Crochet, who obviously has not pitched much in the majors period, certainly not in the last couple years. You know, he spent a lot of time in relief and a lot of time injured. And maybe he'll get injured again. Obviously, I can't say one way or another as far as that goes. But this isn't like a rookie. I don't think the White Sox, as bad as they are going to handle him like a rookie, and he gets to 80, 90, 100 innings and say, that's it. We got to preserve him for all those future seasons he's with us. He already has more than 3 years of service time. The place that the White Sox are right now, and how close Garrett Crochet is to arbitration and free agency, like, they can't, the incentives are toward accumulating as much value for him as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they can then trade him off to some other team. And so I think 130 to 140 innings, again, barring injury, is what I'm expecting. So it's not like they're going to shut him down in June and we're never going to hear from him again. I think he has more length than people are giving him credit for.
All right, Chris, let's slide over to you. Your player of the night.
My player of the night tonight is Andy Pages, outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who hit his second home run today. He went 3 for 5. He's up to a 903 OPS in the early going. And I think he's been pretty much playing. I don't think he's sat any game since he got called up. And I don't see any reason he shouldn't be an everyday player, more or less, for the Dodgers. He was hitting really well at AAA. He came into the season, all the talk was best shape of his life. The thing that really stood out to me is 85th percentile sprint speed in the early going. I didn't think he was that kind of athlete. And so I'm very impressed by what we've seen from Andy Pages so far.
Some of the underlying stuff for Pages has been not so great. I mean, the plate discipline at 0 walks to 9 strikeouts. That's a 31% strikeout rate. The average exit velocity was 82.5 miles per hour entering this game, but he had a 15% barrel rate. So when he gets a pitch that he could do damage on, that's what Andy Pages has been doing so far. And you're right, Chris, that he has not sat out a game yet. He has started all 7 games since being called up to the Dodgers. And obviously this is just cheap exposure to probably the best lineup in baseball. So 42% rostered. He's widely available. Would we rather have Andy Pages or my player of the night, Wilyer Abreu, who stayed hot, 4 for 5 with 2 doubles, a run, and an RBI. He is batting .322 with 2 homers, 4 steals, and a .954 OPS early on. He actually is hitting the ball quite hard, 90.9 average exit velocity, although the expected stats don't necessarily agree with it so far. And he's even more widely available. Wilyer Abreu, 28% rostered. Scott, who would you rather pick up or speculate on, Pages or Abreu?
I like both of these guys. I guess I would have to say Pages just because I think Abreu is a threat to sit at risk of sitting against left-handed pitchers, even with as good as he's looked lately, since he's a left-handed batter. So that would side me more toward Pages, but I think Abreu's floor is higher, if that makes sense. Like, there's a chance Pages just strikes out to the point of sending himself back to the minors, and I don't think that's as likely with Abreu.
I think that's fair, and Abreu does have. He's demonstrated more stolen base ability. He's got 7 steals in 48 career major league games, 22 in what was the number? I just wrote about this, so it should be off the top of my head. 22 homers and 8 steals in 86 career games at AAA. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty well-rounded skill set that should work for Roto. He's not going to keep hitting 318 like he currently is in his major league career, but it's a pretty interesting skill set for Wilyer Abreu, who's batting cleanup for the Red Sox right now, which tells you something about the state of the Red Sox, but also tells you something about how well Wilyer Abreu is playing. So I think they're both top 60 outfielders right now, and should probably be rostered in the majority of leagues.
I would say the majority of 5 outfielder leagues, maybe
Yes.
the case in like 3 outfielder head-to-head category leagues. Points, probably not yet because of the plate discipline for Pages, the lack of everyday at-bats for Wilyer Abreu. I like both of these guys quite a bit as well, but I will lean with Abreu. I think the fact that he is batting cleanup could maybe make up for the lack of playing time against left-handed pitching. And just, I think the skill set is maybe a little bit more fantasy friendly as well. Honorable mention here. I want to give a shout out to Francisco Lindor, who just had his best game of the season, 4 for 5 with a double dong and 4 RBI over his last 10 games. He is batting .359, 3 homers, 1 steal on the season. Plate discipline still looks fine. Quality of contact is down a little bit, but Lindor was a slow starter last year as well. And here we are right away. He's just, boom, starting to pick things up. So just your daily reminder that it is a very long season. And for the elite players that we've seen do it year in and year out, you shouldn't have many concerns, especially one like Francisco Lindor.
Can I read you guys a quote from Nick Castellanos that I think is very apt for where we are in the season?
Sure.
It was from an MLB.com story from Todd Zalecki today. So timely. And Nick Castellanos has been terrible, obviously. But the quote was, "I know that last year I was pretty much worthless in the month of July. You know, I've gone through stretches where I'm out of whack. All of a sudden it clicks. Everybody's like, holy bleep. What did you figure out? Nothing. It's just baseball. The highs and lows." And this is the thing that I think we need to remind ourselves is like, we have all these stats and we look at, oh, this guy's not hitting well and he's not hitting. He's the results are bad and the underlying numbers are bad. And this means he's going to be bad for, like, that's not how it works. Sometimes Francisco Lindor just has a bad 2.5 weeks, but his last 9 games have been really good. And I think he has 3 homers in his last 9 games now. And he's hitting over 300 in that stretch. And it's like, Francisco Lindor has been good for a decade. Nick Castellanos obviously has been much more up and down in his career, but generally has been a really good hitter for a pretty long time. You need more than 3 weeks to say anything concrete about any player, good or bad. Like,
Probably need twice that long, honestly.
Unless we're talking about this pitcher is throwing 8 miles per hour harder, or this pitcher is throwing 8 miles per hour softer. Yeah. I know it's tough because I think part of it is a lot of us play fantasy football and you have to overreact in that sport. And there is value in reacting to the early season. But Scott and I have both written this week pretty extensively about just how little April actually matters. I had a piece that came out on Tuesday or Wednesday where I compared April production over the past 5 seasons to June production. June is more predictive of what a player will do over the course of a full season than April, which I think makes sense, but is also kind of counterintuitive because we think, oh, the start of the season, got to get off to a good start. And you don't. All things being equal, you'd rather your players get off to good starts because it sucks to be 0-4 right now, right? But it doesn't fundamentally change anything about a player. And people need to tell themselves this and remind themselves of this. And that's what we are here to do. And I'm sorry if it makes us sound like bummers. And I'm sorry if it's not what you want to hear. But for the most established players especially, what's happening right now just does not matter that much. That's my rant.
It's a good rant. I came in here pretty crabby myself because I feel like I've been fighting people on Twitter all night because their attitude seems to be, come on, Scott. You just keep saying these things are going to happen and I'm not seeing them happen. And it's like, well, the season is almost 15% done. And that's nothing. That's nothing in a sport where the results are so variable from day to day and week to week that it takes 162 games to sort things out. And it's, yeah, I understand you want to just trust that what you're seeing so far is exactly how things are going to play out, but it really isn't. And in fact, it is surprisingly non-representative of how things are going to play out. So if I say this player who's been bad so far is still good, or this player who's been good so far is probably still bad, maybe there's something to it. Maybe I'm not just taking crazy pills, That's my rant.
All right. I don't have a rant, but I do have to promote a few things. You can listen to and follow both FBT and FBT and 5 on Spotify, plus subscribe to the FBT newsletter if you haven't already. Let's take a break. And when we return, lots of injuries, lots of news. We'll talk about that right after this.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Chris, you're right. That was a great way to return from break. All right, well, you get back on track. News and notes. I can't tell if he's laughing or crying. I don't know what's going on.
Go down the wrong pipe or something?
All right, are we good?
I'm fine.
All right, news and notes. Framber Valdez completed a 40-pitch bullpen on Wednesday and is scheduled to pitch Saturday or Sunday against the Rockies in Mexico City, a.k.a. do not start Framber Valdez in daily lineup leagues. The ball flies even more in Mexico City than it does in Coors Field, so don't do that. Blake Snell was placed in the IL with a moderate left adductor strain. Manager Bob Melvin said Snell could miss beyond the minimum 15 days, and it has been a disastrous start to 2024 for Blake Snell, who not only has dealt with inconsistent production over the past couple of years, but has dealt with quite a few injuries along the way as well. Cody Bellinger was placed in the IL with right rib fractures, not just one, multiple. The Cubs recalled top prospect Pete Crow Armstrong. In the minors this season, he was batting .203 with 2 homers, 5 steals, and a .633 OPS. Scott, anything to make of PCA, or is it just a wait-and-see approach for now?
He has sort of the Rafaela issue where, okay, the minor league numbers have looked pretty good, but there are some major questions about swing decisions. And actually, he wasn't performing that well at AAA prior to this promotion. It's off to a pretty slow start there. And I don't think they've assured us he's going to get playing time consistently. He was terrible, 0 for 14 when they called him up last year. So I'd call it a wait and see. I'm not saying Pete Crow Armstrong will never be a fantasy asset. Maybe it'll be this year. But it's in standard size leagues, not a rush out and pick him up sort of situation.
Lane Thomas was placed on the IL with a grade 2 MCL sprain and is without a timetable for return. The Nationals recalled Trey Lipscomb. No James Wood just yet. Brian Bayo was placed on the IL with right lat tightness. The team is optimistic he'll be ready to return after the minimum 15 days. Jordan Walker was optioned back to AAA. He was hitting just .155 with 0 homers and 0 steals in 20 games this season. He is down to 66% rostered. Chris, can you drop Jordan Walker in all leagues, in certain leagues? What do you think?
All right, so I dropped him in my overall rankings to like 280 because I do imagine he could be back fairly quickly, which is what happened last year when he got sent down. And there are reasons to be optimistic amid what has been another very disappointing start. His average exit velocity is 91.7 miles per hour. That's up more than 2 miles per hour from last season. His barrel rate is 11.9%. That is 80th percentile. So, like, there were signs of optimism amid the struggles, but I would say in most leagues, he's certainly droppable, and you can hang on to him only if you have that luxury, but you probably don't.
Yeah, I don't. Look, 5 outfielder leagues, I get stashing Jordan Walker still, and he's in my top 60. But here's what Oliver Marmol, their manager, had to say about it. He's got to be feeling good about where he's at swing wise and pitch selection wise in order to get back up here to help us, and specifically on the Cardinals team site. He's having trouble laying off low and away pitches, which is messing up, how did they put it, his swing posture. So it's causing mechanical issues, his inability to lay off that pitch specifically. So there is something that the Cardinals need to see from Jordan Walker. And they have surplus. They have hitter surplus. For not being that good of an offensive team. They have hitter surplus. And I like that, like, it sounds like they're more sophisticated in their reasoning for sending Jordan Walker down this year than last year when they were just like, hit the ball in the air more, and they left it at that. And it's like me telling my 6-year-old, go do long division. And then, why aren't you doing long division yet? I told you 2 hours ago. Well, you kind of have to, like, there's more to it than that. You got to actually have to instruct them how to do that, of course. But yeah, it seems like Jordan Walker's kind of a mess right now, and I don't know. I'm not counting on him being back in short order.
Corbin Carroll was dropped down to 7th in the D-backs lineup, and while watching the game, the broadcast said it was temporary to take some pressure off of Carroll. He went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts and is now batting .208 with 1 homer. Still does have 8 steals, but it's a .581 OPS. Scott, how concerned are you with, I guess, not just Corbin Carroll's start, but now being dropped down in the lineup?
Not especially. I mean, there is still that lingering concern that maybe something's going on with the shoulder still. But, you know, if he gets hot and does Corbin Carroll things, I imagine he'll move right up the lineup. So this is not something that affects my opinion of him one way or the other.
Corey Seager was removed after taking a pitch off his shin. He's off to a slow start, batting .256 with just 1 home run. Yohan Duran is scheduled for a second rehab appearance at AAA on Friday. Paul Sewald met with the D-backs medical team to determine whether he needs another rehab appearance, if he's ready to return from the IL, and haven't heard anything just yet. So once we get an update, we'll let you know. Max Scherzer made his first rehab start at AAA on Wednesday. 2 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts. He did give up 2 home runs. He got up to 52 pitches in that one. Nolan Jones was out of the lineup with back stiffness. He left Tuesday's game early. The Rockies recalled Hunter Goodman, who this season in the minors was batting .298 with 7 home runs and a .1042 OPS. He hit 70 home runs combined in the minors between 2022 and 2023. I don't think there's anything actionable yet here with Hunter Goodman, but there could be lots of power. So he's just a name I think that should be on your radar.
Yeah, I think in deep leagues, I'd prioritize him over P-Crow Armstrong amongst outfielders who got called up on Wednesday. It's the Rockies, so you can't count on them to develop their young guys or, frankly, to play their young guys. He didn't start today. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in his minor league numbers, and obviously playing half your games at Coors Field certainly helps. So, yeah, I think Hunter Goodman should definitely be on your roster, at least in deeper leagues.
Merrill Kelly, who was placed on the IL earlier in the week, is expected to miss at least 1 month with a teres major strain in his right shoulder. Zach Geloff was scratched due to left oblique soreness and is likely bound for the IL. Gavin Williams will receive an injection and be shut down for 7 days after feeling right elbow discomfort on Wednesday. Tyro Estrada was removed due to left hamstring tightness. Alec Marsh left his start after taking a comebacker off the forearm. X-rays came back negative. JD Martinez is expected to make his Mets debut on Friday. JP Crawford was scratched from the lineup due to right oblique soreness. AJ Puck will pitch out of the bullpen upon his return from the IL. Obviously a situation worth monitoring because he was pretty good at the start of last year as the closer, though Tanner Scott has looked much better.
Took the loss today.
He got the loss, yeah, but I just don't really put much stock in like extra inning losses for relievers. It's just, I don't know.
I think the Marlins are probably like their bullpen's been really bad so far, and Tanner Scott's been a big part of that. And I think they have a lot of reasons to be panicking right now. And I could see that move happening if Puck looks good. He's got to pitch well and get healthy first. So it might be a month away, but I think it's still possible.
And he changed his mechanics to start, right? So he changed his arm slot to capture the splitter. Wasn't that something
that was one thing he had talked about? Yeah, that he was his arm slot was higher, and that was why he was able to throw the splitter. So that could possibly explain why he was struggling.
Right. So I don't know that he's just automatically going to revert to his pre-starter form, but hopefully he does because he was a pretty good reliever.
Miguel Sano was removed Wednesday due to left knee soreness. Kevin Kiermaier was placed on the IL with left hip flexor inflammation, and Blue Jays prospect Addison Barger was called up to make his debut in Kiermaier's place. This season in the minors was batting .314 with a .1021 OPS. Scott, anything here with Addison Barger?
Yeah, I like Addison Barger. He had a breakout season in the minors 2 years ago and then took a step back last year, but he was performing well out of the gate at AAA this year. .314 with 3 home runs, as many walks as strikeouts, 14 to 15. So the strikeout rate is consistently been coming down with him. He's And that's really a sign of figuring things out, I think. Plus, his zone contact rate was over 90%. So he went from, even during that breakout season, Addison Barger went from contact issues, that being one of his biggest liabilities, to now it appears to be gone, at least at the minor league level. A left-handed hitter, so I don't imagine we'll see him every day for the Blue Jays, but they have openings in that lineup, whether it's in the outfield, where it sounds like he's going to see the most work, or at third base, where he also has experience.
All right, let's talk rankings updates. As always, you could find our rankings up on the website, cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball/rankings. You could also find them on the CBS Fantasy app. And let's start with the risers. Chris, go over to you. Who are some of the biggest risers in your rankings this week?
All right. I have moved Evan Herrera up quite a bit. I have moved Josh Naylor, Luis Garcia from the Nationals, not the one from the Padres or the Astros. Justin Turner, we have not talked, but Justin Turner has been very good.
Yep.
And it's one of those ones where he just ends up buried in the rankings at the start of the season because it's like, nobody wants Justin Turner. And then the season starts and he invariably hits really well. And it's like, oh, yeah, Justin Turner. Andy Pajas, Max Scherzer with his looming return. I moved him ahead of like Cody Senga and other guys who are well behind him. Sonny Gray has looked really awesome so far. Had to move Mason Miller up. He is the most electrifying man in sports entertainment right now. So had to move him up.
Do you smell what Mason Miller is cooking?
He's just so much fun.
Yeah. And for those wondering, why don't you have Mason Miller ranked as a reliever? It's the same thing we spoke about earlier with Garrett Crochet. He needs to make 10 appearances on the season to have relief pitcher eligibility on CBS. I think he's made 8 so far, so he has to make 2 more appearances, and then we will obviously rank him as a reliever on the site. Scott, I know you had a big rankings update, and there's an article on the site to accompany that. Who were some of the names that moved up for you?
Well, I went ahead and moved Ellie De La Cruz past Rafael Devers in Roto Leagues, still behind Austin Riley for me. His numbers through this point of the season look remarkably similar to his numbers through a similar point after his call-up last year, and we all know how that turned out. So, maintaining a healthy skepticism, but at the same time, crazy high upside there. Josh Naylor is probably the one I want to focus on most because I am sold on him being a total stud, I think. And it was a long and winding path to get there, filled with injuries and platoon situations and whatever else. But now he's combining the contact skills of a Stephen Kwan with like legitimate middle of the order power. And his numbers have been good against lefties for a couple years now. So he's all the way up to 7th for me. Josh Naylor is at first base. Actually, I'm sorry. I should say he's up to 6 now because I just had to move Cody Bellinger down with his injury. So he's up to 6 now. And that is the highest ranked first baseman beyond what I think is an impenetrable top 5 of what's that top 5? Matt Olson, Freddie Freeman, Bryce Harper, Pete Alonso, and Vladimir Guerrero. The next first baseman for me now is Josh Naylor. How do you like that? Good for him. I moved Paul Goldschmidt down, not just behind Josh Naylor, but also behind Christian Walker and Spencer Steer. One of my preseason bust picks there. And it's not looking good so far. Again, too early to completely tank Paul Goldschmidt, but I have a lot of faith in Walker and Steer, and so I think I'm happy to say they deserve to be ahead of him now. Others that I've moved up include Jordan Westberg. He now is in my top 10 at second base. So
Scott, you're a liar. You're a liar.
We just got to a point where like I ran out of players. I ran out of second basemen to rank ahead of him because. Of course, Zach Geloff has had his issues, and Luis Ariz and Nolan Gorman, they've had their struggles. And it's just like, would I really take any of those guys over Jordan Westberg? No. So Jordan Westberg now top 10 rest of season. Didn't take me long to get there. Also moved up his teammate Cedric Mullins, who's showing that power speed potential again. Starling Marte, could say the same for him. In my pitcher rankings, you say Kikuchi, Ranger Suarez, Nestor Cortez have moved up for obvious reasons. They've been pitching well. And I guess I should specify that I moved them ahead of some upside types who I'm now not as hopeful of them meeting their upside. Guys like Kyle Harrison and Carlos Rodon. You know, I'd take more boring quote unquote types like Kikuchi, Suarez, and Cortez over them. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I did a lot of the same things. I got Josh Naylor up to 7th in my first base rankings. And I think Cedric Mullins moved inside my top 30 outfielders, Starling Marte inside the top 40. Well-deserved. Lots of those similar starting pitchers. I think Kikuchi is like top 45 or top 50. So definitely on board with a lot of those rankings risers. I did want to mention, made some kind of big moves up at the top with Ellie and Gunnar Henderson. I know you mentioned you moved Ellie up, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Gunnar Henderson is just off to a tremendous start as well. 3 for 3 with a sock in the shoe here on Wednesday. His 8th homer, his 5th steal, 20 runs, 20 RBI. He's batting over 300, an OPS over 1,000. And it's a really small sample size. One of my concerns with Gunnar has been struggles against lefties. So far this season, he's batting .324 with 2 homers and an OPS over 1,000 against left-handed pitching. So I moved both Ellie and Gunnar inside of my top 3 at third base. They are ahead of Austin Riley. They are ahead of Rafael Devers, and I think they're both top 6 at shortstop. So I think it's pretty drastic whenever players move up that high in the rankings. So I thought it was worth mentioning. I'm in. I'm just pretty much sold here on Gunnar and Ellie De La Cruz. Let's slide over to the fallers here. Chris, anyone you'd like to point out?
I moved Rafael Devers down, not just with Ellie De La Cruz jumping ahead of him, but I moved him down below Gunnar Henderson. I still keep the overall rankings for the trade value, so he's around 30th now for me. So that's about a round drop from where he was. And it's just all these injuries. I'm just a little worried about what it's going to mean for him coming back. The fact that he hasn't been able to get through them is concerning. I moved Spencer Torkelson down. I moved Nolan Jones and Jazz Chisholm down at outfield. Jazz just looks really bad right now. Still can't hit lefties. Not sure he's ever going to be able to. And Carlos Rodon, who we've talked a lot about. I was shocked to see that the Fangraphs Stuff Plus metric has his fastball as a top 10 fastball in baseball and his sliders like top 20, because I think those pitches have not been very good. And maybe it's just a command thing. Maybe he's just leaving them in the zone a bit too much and they can play up. But I've been very unimpressed by what we've seen from Carlos Rodon. I think he's one of the more obvious sell high candidates right now. And I have moved him down at starting pitcher to definitely outside the top 43 at starting pitcher for me.
Oh, I got him 68.
Oh, wow. You really hate Carlos Rodon.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah.
I just buried him too. I mean,
I thought I hated Carlos Rodon.
You don't hate him enough.
I moved him
guess
down.
not.
I moved him down to 58, so not as low.
Oh,
as,
wow. I love Carlos Rodon.
It wasn't really.
This is like last week when I said I didn't know we were allowed to move Jared Jones that high. You didn't know we were allowed to move Carlos Rodon that
Yeah, I
low.
guess not.
Yeah.
For me, it was just moving so many pitchers ahead of Rodon. He just kept dropping down. It was just guys that have looked so good so far. Kikuchi, Ranger Suarez, Tanner Howe, Cutter Crawford, just a lot of these names. The more you move ahead of Rodon, he just kept slipping down for me. So
I said last time I'd be willing to drop Carlos Rodon for pretty much anybody who's interesting out there, and so I made sure my rankings reflected that.
Scott, any other fallers that you wanted to highlight? I know you mentioned Paul Goldschmidt dropped down a little bit. I know Jordan Walker has dropped down for all of us, and you wrote that article even before he was demoted, so obviously it makes even more sense now.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. I didn't make as much note of the fallers. They're never as fun, the fallers, you know? So how far did you guys move Blake Snell down with that injury news? I moved him behind like Sonny Gray and Justin Verlander.
I moved him
outside the top 30.
I moved him to 36. I have him in kind of a mini injury tier of Bueller, Snell, Cole, and Scherzer in that order.
Mm-hmm.
But Scherzer's going to beat him back now, so Maybe I'll move shows.
Yeah, it was 32 for me.
Yeah. Okay. So we moved him to a similar range there. Yeah. No. I mean, I talked about Goldschmidt. That was probably the big one. That's fine. We can keep going.
All right, let's take our final break. When we return, we'll get back into Wednesday's action. We'll do that right after this.
Two big boys getting ready to play. Big being the operative word here. And here they come.
Four players from Wednesday who had interesting performances. Buy, sell, or hold on these names. Evan Carter is off to a slow start. He went 2 for 4 with his 4th home run. He's batting .215. He's got 16 runs scored and a .771 OPS. He's still walking quite a bit, but the quality of contact has been bad for Evan Carter. Chris, what are you thinking about Carter right now? Buy, sell, or hold?
I probably lean buy. I did move like him, Jackson Churio, Wyatt Langford down just a little bit. I don't know if it was actually really reflected in the outfield rankings much. They're all still in the 24 to 27 range, but they're all off to bad starts, and none of them have track records that you can point to say, oh, they'll be fine. So I'm a little worried, but I probably lean more buy than anything else with Evan Carter.
What about his teammate Wyatt Langford? He had the first 3-hit game of his career. He went 3 for 3 with a double and a walk. Still has 0 homers, 0 steals so far. The plate discipline has been fine. Actually, I would say it's more than fine. His zone contact has been above league average already. He is not swinging and missing. The quality of contact has been underwhelming, and there's lots of infield fly balls so far, lack of line drives. He is really fast. According to StatCast, it's 97th percentile sprint speed for Wyatt Langford. Scott, what do you think here? Buy, sell, or hold on?
Can I jump in and just add something here?
Sure.
I saw the other day that Wyatt Langford leads the majors in called strikes outside of the strike zone. I think he has 18 of them so far. At least he did as of yesterday.
I think 10 of those were from Angel Hernandez in that one.
Yeah, he had 3 in 1 plate appearance. Julio Rodriguez had a very, very similar issue early in his rookie season where he was just getting a ton of called strikes, either right on the shadow of the plate or, in this case, outside of the strike zone. So I think if you're looking for a reason to be optimistic, that's probably one, that he's just had a little bad luck there. Sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, my opinion of Wyatt Langford hasn't changed. My opinion of Evan Carter hasn't changed either, for what it's worth. There's the stretch in my outfield rankings from 15 to 25 that I feel like is just frozen in time because most of those players haven't lived up to expectations yet. But I still think they're clearly higher impact in the long run than the guys who rank behind them at what we considered a very weak position coming into the year. I think the most encouraging thing for Langford and Carter both is how low their strikeout rates are. They're just a little over 20%. And that's a big improvement for Carter from his rookie stint last year. So plate discipline's been great for both. I think as they see more pitches and get a feel for which ones they can have impactful contact on, we're going to see the production surge, as we saw for many high-end rookies the past couple years, whether it was Gunnar Henderson last year, who was struggling through June, or Julio Rodriguez and Bobby Witt 2 years ago.
Let's talk about Reynaldo Lopez, who is now 4 for 4 in quality starts this season. He was facing that vaunted Miami Marlins lineup. 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts with 18 swinging strikes on 82 pitches, 13 of those on the slider, 5 on the fastball. Did allow 10 hard hits in this game, but over his past 2 starts specifically, Reynaldo Lopez has really leaned into the slider, and obviously it was amazing here, getting 13 of those 18 swinging strikes. Scott, we'll go back to you. Reynaldo Lopez, buy, sell, or hold? What are you seeing with him?
Well, I guess I still lean sell, as I was saying after his first couple starts, but his last couple starts have been more dominant. They've been more dominant. He got 18 swinging strikes in this start against the Marlins, and specifically the slider was responsible for 13 of them. He threw it 44% of the time versus the 26% that he had thrown it up to this point in the season. So leaning on it more, as you were saying. And there's a lot more movement on that pitch than there was last year when, remember, of course, he was working primarily in relief. There's a couple more inches of movement there, which might explain why he's having so much success. The quality of contact on him has been very low, apart from the increase in whiffs we've seen here recently from Reynaldo Lopez. And so I'd say, if you are going to sell him, obviously it needs to be for something pretty good. That's the whole idea of selling high. If you're just going to sell him for, a pretty fringy pitcher, well, that's not selling high. So you might as well just stick with them and see if this recent uptick in whiffs continues. Because if nothing else, he's going to get a ton of run support with the Braves and be a useful streaming option at worst because of that.
Joe Ryan turned in a quality start against the White Sox. It was 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts with 19 swinging strikes on 92 pitches. He went back to a heavy fastball approach in this one. He threw it 61% of the time, and it was dominant. 10 of his 19 whiffs came on that fastball. It's a 3.77 ERA and a 101 whip. Lots of strikeouts, very little walks so far. Chris, where are we at on Joe Ryan? Buy, sell, or hold?
I think I lean more hold, and I think you guys probably lean more sell, because I know you guys both had Joe Ryan as a bust coming into the season, but he has
my mind.
Yeah, I mean, he's we've talked about this a few times, but because he is throwing his splitter and slider much harder than he did last season, it is a different version of Joe Ryan than the one we saw last year. So I still think there are going to be times when the home runs are a problem, but he's doing such a good job getting strikeouts and limiting walks right now that I'm viewing him as a top 25 starting pitcher the rest of the way, I think is where I have him ranked.
You have him 25. Frank and I have him 26.
There you go.
So
So
we're on the
buy
same
as
page.
top 25, sell as top 20. Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think he's a hold right now, too. There's just so few pitchers that are A, healthy, and B, pitching well right now. And Joe Ryan is both of those things. So while I was down on him coming into the season, I'm not going to be stubborn with it. He's pitched well. He's made adjustments, and I think he's a hold as well. So
beyond pitching well, it's just that he's changed he's changed
present.
who he is.
Yeah.
Like if the velocity is up that much on your secondary pitches, you're a different pitcher. And so the prior analysis kind of goes out the window at that point, for as much as we've talked this podcast about how prior analysis shouldn't go out the window.
let's talk about some breakout pitchers who underwhelmed here on Wednesday. Nick Lodolo did not have his best stuff. 5 innings, 3 runs, 3 walks to 4 strikeouts, still had 16 swinging strikes, but control was a bit of an issue here. He only had 1 walk total in his first 2 starts. Obviously had 3 walks in this one. Jack Flaherty was meh at the Rays. It was 5 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 6 strikeouts to 0 walks. Still had 15 swinging strikes on 97 pitches. I still love the fact that he is not walking anybody this season. It's 4 walks in 5 starts for Jack Flaherty. Bryce Miller lost his control in the start at the Texas Rangers. It was 4 innings, 2 runs, 4 walks to 5 strikeouts. He gave up 2 home runs, tons of hard contact, 100.4 average exit velocity against in this start for Bryce Miller. Scott, any concern? I mean, look, any pitcher's allowed to have a bad start, but these are 3 that we have kind of dubbed breakout pitchers this year, or re-breakouts. What'd you see from Bryce Miller, Flaherty, and Nick Lodolo?
I saw more reasons to be encouraged than discouraged, to be honest. And I understand the stat line wasn't great for any of them, but you obviously can't go and change the start that already happened. You're taking signals from the start that happened about what's going to happen in the future. That's what we're trying to do here. That's why when we say this bad start was actually good, that's what we're talking about. And specifically in Flaherty's case, you kind of alluded to this already, Frank, the fact that his control is so much better than we've seen in recent years. And his swinging strike rate is like, he has a 15% swinging strike rate on the year. That's the best he's ever had. And You look at the previous 3 years for Jack Flaherty when he was bad, 10.7%, 10.4%, 11.6%. Now he's at 15. You know what it was his last good year? It was 14.3%. So by any metric you want to look at other than ERA, Jack Flaherty is the best we've seen him in 5 years. And I think the ERA is going to catch up to the other numbers versus the other way around. So I would not be dropping Jack Flaherty, just like I was saying, don't drop Garrett Crochet. And stop sweating so much about a mid-4s ERA in April, because you know who had a mid-4s ERA last April? Corbin Burns. Just chill. Come on. All right. I also want to say something about Nick Lodolo here. Obviously, the walks were kind of high in this start, and that led to the meh result as much as anything. But still 16 swinging strikes on 98 pitches. 7 on the changeup. It had a 78% whiff rate in this game. And coming in, it had a 47% whiff rate. So presumably it's over 50% for the season now. We already knew Nick Lodolo had this bananas curveball that's certainly played like that in the limited time we've seen him this year. If his changeup becomes a wipeout pitch too, and certainly the whiff rate so far would suggest that, holy cow. The upside on this guy is absurd, so I would not lose faith for this kind of mess start against the Phillies. And, like, stop overreacting to mess starts in general. You know, like, I had all these comments about, oh, Flaherty really blew it for me this week. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? Did he give up 7 runs in 3 innings? And it was 4 and 5. It's like,
yeah,
like that's not that bad.
He's only had 1 bad start, really. And even that, he gave up 6 runs in 6 innings. It's the only start where he's given up as many runs as innings. He still had 5 strikeouts and 1 walk in that one. And this one, he had 6 strikeouts, 0 walks over 5 innings. Like, I don't know. Flaherty hasn't been great. And I don't think Jack Flaherty is likely to be an ace moving forward. But, like, his xERA is in the 3.8 range. I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation for Jack Flaherty moving forward. And I think
his xFIP, if you prefer that, is 268.
Well, that he's given up a home run in every start, and xFIP assumes that he will give up home runs at a roughly league average rate, and maybe he will, but I think a sub-3 ERA is extremely unlikely for Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to have a 268 ERA.
But if he has a 3.7 ERA, 3.8 ERA, that's a super useful player when it's coming with a strikeout per inning.
11K per 9, 1.2 walks per 9.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you know nothing else but a pitcher than that, you should be pretty excited.
If you guys could turn Carlos Rodon into Flaherty, would you do it?
Easily.
I wouldn't, but that's mostly because I'm aiming higher than that.
Right.
Rodon has name value. He has a 2.7 ERA. Like, I want much more of a sure thing for Jack Flaherty.
What about Ronaldo Lopez?
Again, same thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait. Same. I would trade Lopez for Flaherty.
I would rather have Flaherty than Lopez.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Let's look at some waiver wire pitchers from Wednesday's action. Spencer Turnbull pitched well again. He was at the Reds. It was 5 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts with 10 swinging strikes. Kyle Gibson turned in a quality start against the D-backs. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, 14 swinging strikes out of nowhere from Kyle Gibson. Dean Kramer tied a career high with 10 strikeouts at the Angels. He had 18 swinging strikes on 101 pitches. Tyler Anderson was just okay. It was 5 innings, 2 runs, 4 walks to 7 strikeouts, but he had himself 14 swinging strikes. And Jameson Taillon was okay against the Astros, 5 2/3, 2 runs allowed. Only one of those was earned with 4 strikeouts. Anybody on this list a priority add? Taillon, Anderson, Kramer, Gibson, and Turnbull. I feel like we would like Turnbull. I don't know what's going to happen with Taijuan Walker returning. I don't know.
I think it sounds like he's probably not going to stay in the rotation moving forward. Maybe they give him 1 more turn. Maybe they give him 2 more turns. But I think they should leave him in the rotation. I think what he's done this season with the addition of that sweeper has made him really interesting in a way that it's been a long time since Spencer Turnbull's been this interesting, if ever. So I would love to see him stay in the rotation. If he was, I think he'd probably be in the 60 to 70 range at starting pitcher for me. It's just, he's not, or at least I don't think he is. So it's really hard to roster him once he loses that rotation spot. So I can't say you should add him now.
I don't want to oversell Turnbull, and maybe you disagree, Chris, but I don't think there are as many reasons to be encouraged and excited about Turnbull as there are for like Flaherty. Because yes, we can point to this new sweeper as, okay, why is he doing so much better? Oh, look, he has a new sweeper. And yet the individual characteristics on the sweeper are kind of whatever, and it's not like he's missing a ton of bats. It's a 10% swinging strike rate, which is not very good. He's allowed soft contact, a lot of soft contact, but there aren't many pitchers in the league who succeed mainly on soft contact without missing a lot of bats. And so I think if Turnbull were to stay in the rotation, there would be major regression coming.
Well, yeah.
Do I think he's better than Taijuan Walker? I think most pitchers are better than Taijuan Walker, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the range of pitchers that I am ranking him with is like Gavin Stone and Jordan, or would rank him with if he was going to stay in the rotation, are like Gavin Stone and Jordan Hicks and Brandon Pfaadt and Charlie Morton, and guys who I think can be on your roster. I think they're also one, maybe two bad starts away from just being dropped. And so that's, I think, the range where Turnbull lives in, where if he stayed in the rotation, I think he'd be fine to have around, but you'd have to have a short leash for him anyway.
For Dean Kramer, because he had 10 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings, obviously out of character, 18 swinging strikes, 10 on the fastball. His fastball had 2 more inches of vertical movement than usual. I don't have a frame of reference for how common that is from one start to the next. I mean, it might explain why the fastball performed better in this start. Is that just like a flash in the pan? I would assume so, but I thought it was noteworthy given that he got so many whiffs on that fastball in this one.
I think that like 2 inches is not nothing, but it doesn't seem like a significant enough change to me to like,
certainly not as an
noteworthy,
isolated event.
Yeah.
We'll see if it continues, but
And we'll see if he's featured in tomorrow's 2-star pitchers, because it looks like he's in line for 2 against the Yankees and at the Reds. So tough matchups. Don't love it, but obviously
Probably-
Kramer coming off a great start.
probably a points league only play.
Okay. Let's quickly run through some waiver wire hitters. Scott, shout out to you. I know Anthony Rizzo was one of your sleeper hitters this week, and he's homered in back-to-back games. He is 73% rostered. That sounds about right. I liked Rizzo as a sleeper this year. I still have him 26th in my first base rankings. There's just so many interesting first base options. I don't know that he needs to be more than 73% rostered. Michael Garcia is picking things back up. He went 2 for 4 with 2 steals and an RBI. And the average exit velocity is really good. The expected stats are actually great for Michael Garcia. Like, he's batting 206. His XBA is 269. So he's been dropped in a few leagues. He's 69% rostered. I think even in a shallower format, I would be interested in picking Garcia back up if someone dropped him.
Well, I don't know that I'd be in a categories league. Sure. In a categories league. Sure. In a points league, I'd be more interested in Rizzo if I'm deciding between the two in a points league.
Okay. Wanted to mention Connor Wong, who had a huge game, went 4 for 4 with a double dong. He has started 7 of the past 8 games for the Red Sox, and more of a 2-catcher league play. He's 18% rostered. Any interest in Connor Wong?
Ivan Herrera is 21% rostered.
Okay.
So as long as those guys are even close to one another in roster rate, I'm not going to have any interest in Connor Wong.
And I don't know if we mentioned this with the Jordan Walker news. That's even more reassurance that Ivan Herrera that the plan is to play him more regularly, switch him and Wilson Contreras out between DH and catcher. He's one of the hitter. When I referred to the Cardinals hitter excess, Ivan Herrera was one of the players I was referring to.
Yeah, Contreras was back in the lineup today after he left last night's game, but Herrera is still there as DH. So Yeah, hard to have much interest in Connor Wong when Ivan Herrera is just as widely available.
Some hitting leftovers. We already mentioned what Lindor did. Mike Trout is the first to 10 home runs this season, and he crushed it. 114.5 exit velocity, over 400 feet. Notice the batting average is 237 for Trout, but the XBA is 269. So I think that should get better for him. Welcome back to Rafi Devers, who went 3 for 4 with a double and a home run. The plate discipline is much improved for Devers this year. We obviously haven't seen enough of him. We want to see him stay on the field.
Yeah, that home run was 109 miles per hour. So it was a healthy guy's home run. I think Devers is going to be fine. I know he's been banged up, but it's minor stuff, and he's had a few days off, and I think he'll be fine.
Alec Boehm is red hot, 4 for 4 with a double and 2 RBI over his last 7 games. He is batting .556 with 2 homers and 11 RBI. Randy Arozarena went 1 for 4 with his 3rd home run, but also struck out 3 times. Is off to a pretty rough start. 158 batting average, 486 OPS. The batted ball data is just kind of out of whack right now. 21% infield fly ball rate. Have to imagine that's going to come down for Randy Arozarena. Nico Horner starting to rack up the hits. He went 2 for 4 with a run scored, and over his last 15 games, he's batting .356. Only 1 stolen base. We just need Nico Horner to run more this season. And Salvador Perez, a name we haven't talked a lot about, but he is just off to a tremendous start. 2 for 3 with a walk and 6 RBI. He's batting .348, OPS over 1,000, crushing the ball. I mean, the StatCast data looks closer to that, 48 home run season than it has any other.
I resent this from Salvador Perez because
Finally gave up on him.
The previous 2 years, I was one of the most vocal Salvador Perez backers out there, and then I called him a bust this year. And look what's happening.
He just needed the motivation.
He did. On the Nico Horner front, I wanted to say, I thought I had it pulled up. I don't think I have it pulled up. It's supposed to be team statistics. Why are you not showing me team statistics? Well, the Cubs as a team have no stolen bases. And I was promised by you, Frank, that Craig Counsell would lead to them running more. Yeah, they have 5 stolen bases as a team. What in the world?
Scott, I don't know if you know this, but it's April 25th. Been a long season ahead, but
then the Twins have 5. No other team has fewer than 8, and it's the stinking Rockies.
Yikes. Not the best.
Meanwhile, the Reds have 40.
They have 8 times. No, it actually is updated. They have 45 stolen bases, Scott.
Oh, okay.
They have 9 times as many steals as the Cubs and the Minnesota Twins. That is
9 times.
Wow. Bullpen updates from Wednesday for the Orioles. Craig Kimbrell got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He gave up an unearned run, but picked up his 7th save. For the Reds, Alexis Diaz picked up his 5th save. For the Brewers, Yoel Payamps got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He had 2 errors behind him, but managed to pick up his 4th save. For the Rays, Jason Adam entered in the 7th with a 2-run lead to face the top of the Tigers lineup. He threw 2 perfect innings with 2 strikeouts. Lefty Garrett Clevenger got the 9th. He walked 1, but picked up his 2nd save.
What are you doing, Kevin? Kevin!
Yeah. I mean, I still think Jason Adam is the most likely, but he might just get the heart of the order, whatever that is, late in the game. So
I'm just going to spend the rest of the podcast quoting movies written by John Hughes.
For the Braves, Raisel Iglesias got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He gave up 3 hits, 2 runs. One of those, only 1 was earned. He took his first blown save. For the Cubs, Adbert Alzolay entered with 2 outs in the 6th inning. 2-run lead, a runner on first and second. He there was a hit by pitch, and then he got Altuve to fly out. Alzolay got the first out of the 7th, and then he was taken out of the game. Mark Leiter Jr. pitched the 8th, and then it was Hector Neris in the 9th. With a 2-run lead, he gave up a solo homer, but converted his 2nd save. And I feel like this is how it's going to play out for at least the short term. Hector Neris in the 9th inning.
Well, the home run in the 9th inning was a familiar sight, and I'm not sure how much patience Craig Counsell is going to have for that, since that was the reason for all 4 of Adbert Alzolay's blown saves. We'll see. I'm a little skeptical though.
For the Royals, James MacArthur got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He gave up a hit, but struck out 2 for his 6th save. For the Twins, Griffin Jacks got the 9th with a 3-run lead. He picked up his 3rd save, but it sounds like Yohan Duran could be back soon. And for the Padres, Robert Suarez pitched a clean 9th for his 9th save, which ties him for the league lead. To stream or not to stream on Thursday, it's pretty rough. Pretty rough out here. Not great.
Yeah, I could see Mike Soroka having a good game against the Twins because it's the Twins, but it's also Mike Soroka.
Really putting that to the test, aren't we?
I could see Tristan McKenzie having a good game against Boston, although now that Rafael Devers is back, maybe not so much. So
you should not stream anybody.
Yeah, wouldn't stream any of these guys.
This is a disaster.
Friday is not much better, and I part of the reason is because there were just lots of TBDs on MLB.com, so we'll have more options tomorrow when we talk about it. But does anybody stand out on Friday? Maybe Reese Olson.
Yeah, Reese Olson against the Royals is okay. It's certainly better than anything Thursday.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best one on either day. I think it's probably the only one I would even really consider on either day.
Rough days of streaming there on Thursday and Friday. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.